In December 1891, a physical education instructor in Springfield, Massachusetts, was given 2 weeks to invent an indoor game for his students. He nailed two peach baskets to a balcony, found a soccer ball, and wrote down 13 rules. That game would eventually lead to the National Basketball Association. This is the story of how it got there. The instructor was James Naismith. He worked at the YMCA training school in Springfield, and they needed a game players could compete in indoors during the winter. His original 13 rules required players to pass the ball rather than run with it. Dribbling as we know it today developed gradually over the years that followed, as players found ways to advance the ball within the rules. And because the peach baskets still had their bottoms intact, someone had to retrieve the ball by hand after every score until the basket design was eventually changed. The game spread quickly. Within a few years, YMCAs across the country were organizing their own basketball programs, and it soon moved into colleges and amateur athletic clubs as well. But for decades, there was no single organization running the sport, just independent teams, regional clubs, and a patchwork of leagues. Through the early 1900s, professional basketball existed mainly through barnstorming, teams that traveled from town to town playing for a share of ticket sales. One of the most successful was the original Celtics, a New York-based team unrelated to the Boston Celtics formed decades later. Many early courts were enclosed in wire fencing to keep the ball in play and protect players from spectators. In 1926, Abe Saperstein founded the Harlem Globetrotters in Chicago. At the time, they were a serious competitive team, one of several all-black teams that formed their own circuits because professional leagues largely excluded black players. The pay was inconsistent, the travel was demanding, there was no governing body holding any of it all together. Basketball had talent and audiences. What it didn't have was structure. The first attempt at that structure came in 1925 with the American Basketball League. It struggled financially and folded and reformed multiple times before fading out during the Depression. In 1937, the National Basketball League formed in the Midwest. Several of the teams were sponsored by companies like General Electric and Firestone, who backed them as a form of employee recreation and morale building. Then, in 1946, a different kind of league emerged, the Basketball Association of America, or BAA. It wasn't founded by basketball figures. It was founded by arena owners, including Walter Brown of the Boston Garden and Ned Irish of Madison Square Garden. These were large venues built mainly for hockey, and basketball gave them a way to fill the building on nights when the ice wasn't booked. That gave the BAA something the NBL didn't have: access to major arenas in big cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and Chicago. The NBL, meanwhile, had more established teams and deeper roots in smaller markets. Neither league was strong enough on its own to dominate the sport. For 3 seasons, the BAA and the NBL competed directly, often fighting over the same players in the same cities. By 1949, neither league was in a position to keep that up. On August 3, 1949, they merged. 17 teams combined under a new name, the National Basketball Association. The timing was worth noting. This was just 2 years after Jackie Robinson broke Major League Baseball's color barrier, and television had barely reached American households. The newly formed NBA was not an instant success. Within a few years, more than half of its original 17 teams had folded or relocated, and the league struggled with inconsistent attendance and limited national recognition. But the foundation was finally in place, and shortly after the merger, the league found the player who would define its first era, George Mikan, a 6'10" center for the Minneapolis Lakers. Dominant enough that the NBA changed its own rules to keep up with him. Subscribe and follow the series as we move from peach baskets to the modern NBA era by era.